to this session, which is entitled Student Writing. I'm Tal Levy and I'm the chair. We have 3 presentations here today. Each will have 10 minutes of presenting and then 3 minutes for questions immediately after the presentation. So without any further ado, I would like to turn the floor to Dr. Chin Wen Chien from the National Tsinghua University in Hsinchu City in Taiwan. Chin, the floor is yours. You are on mute, you are on mute.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, can you see my PowerPoint slides? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Good. Okay. Good. Right now it's afternoon in Taiwan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Grace, and I'm from Taiwan. The title of my presentation is Learning from Being Language Learner to Emergent Researchers. And currently, I'm an associate professor in Department of English Instruction from National Tsinghua University from Taiwan. I'm going to briefly share with you about my study in the introduction issue to be discussed, and I will skip the literature review parts and talk about the method, analysis, discussion, conclusion, implication, and limitations. So in Taiwan, college students are expected to write, particularly in English departments, they have to complete their graduation projects. So they are expected to perform academically. However, due to the lacking experience, they may not have good instructions in academic discourse. So this study, I'm going to focus about how they move from language learners to emergent researchers, beginner researchers. So I have 3 research questions. The first one is, how did these 40 participants view themselves as researchers, and what factors affect their role as beginner researchers? And what kind of problems did they face? And what kind of strategies did they use? And what kind of other instructional strategies could be used by the teachers to scaffolding them to become a good researchers in later on? And in my original articles, my literature review focused on the role of the researchers, the difficulties and challenges they face, the instructional strategies that teachers can use, and the empirical studies. And teachers, the emergent researchers consider themselves, they have to switch the role from students to the researchers because they kind of struggle with these 2 roles. And they have some challenges they face, for example, the structure of academic writings, papers, and APA styles, and the terms and the readings, because they have to read the journal article and write the summary and literature review for the writing parts. And they also have challenges in reading the journal articles and the topics they have to choose for the studies. So there are some instructional strategies that teachers can use, for example, monitoring, scaffolding, and transparency and small group discussions. And this is my conceptual frameworks. So from the beginner, currently they are language learners. They will have to move from being to a beginner researchers. So they need to have a self-image and identity, and they need to increase their academic literacy. So there are some factors will affect their roles. For example, the related courses they took before, and the past experience in academic writings. So these studies, I mainly use quantitative case studies. So the data I collected were from class projects and the class exit cards interview. The exit cards here is that at the end of each class, students will have to answer the question, what have you learned about the issues that we talk about in the class? And the challenges they face, the problem they still have, and what kind of strategies they are going to use to help them to solve the problems. So this is also called exit cards. In the class project, they have to complete different types of writing assignments. And at the end, also have the interview protocol to ask about their roles. So definitely because this is in my class, and so 2 classes, so from 40 participants, so they are convincing sampling. The study was conducted in 2016 academic years. So this is a coding systems, and I read through all the notes and give the authentic codes and find the major things and group that into the sentence things. So this is the major findings here. So before the class, those participants thought they are babies because they are just new to the academic writing, or they kind of sponge because they would like to absorb new information. They feel like writing is kind of painter. They have to paint and draw the pictures, and they feel nervous about being researchers, and they feel kind of worried about that. After the class, they wrote that they learned a lot from the class, and they feel relieved because during the class, the teacher, I give a clear direction for them to write, even though they still feel anxious about their academic writings. And how they change the roads, how they improve. They find out the more they read, and the better they will have, they can have better academic literacy, and they have better understanding of the structure of the academic paper. And also the problems they face is the structures. In the beginning, they don't know what they have to include in the academic papers. But throughout the class, they know the structures, and they still struggle a lot about the APA styles. I think all the scholars, we struggle about this as well. And they do not have the knowledge in the technical terms in TESOL fields. And the strategies they use in order to help them to form their identity is they were encouraged to read more journal articles. They also discuss in class, they got a chance to discuss with classmates and meet and other professors. And then structural strategies used in the class is I give them some good articles for them to analyze. So they know the structure, they know the sentence patterns, they know the technical terms that they can use for academic writings. And another one is that I practice a teaching strategies called station teachings. So different concepts were put into different stations for them to acquire the knowledge. And the factor that will affect their identity formation is that if they took a related course in academic writings before, and they had experience in writing.
2 more minutes.
Okay, if they have more experience in writing the research papers, they will have better identities of being the researchers. So I'll skip all the students' quotes. So basically from the study, I will conclude that they move from language learners to beginner researchers. The challenges they face mainly about the structures as well as the APA format. The strategies that can help them to improve definitely is to help them to read more journal articles and provide them the scaffolding. And so it's important that they can build in the class. The teacher can foster community of practice to help them to learn in the group. So definitely the limitation of this study is because the study was only conducted in 2 classes in one particular school. So the finding may not be able to generate to other school institutes. So another further study is that scholars can apply the similar studies in their own institute in order to find out what kind of courses and class can help them to improve the beginner researchers in terms of their academic writings and transforms their identity from being the learners into the researchers. And I think I finished in 10 minutes.
Okay, great. It's less than 10 minutes even. And we have time for questions. So we have like 4 minutes for questions. Any questions that you wish to ask or address, or anything else that you would like to add, Grace? I wanted to ask, first of all, maybe I missed it. How many students participated in this research? 40 students from 2 classes. Mm-hmm. And what's the average age of these students?
They are seniors. Seniors means 21 or 22.
Okay. Interesting. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I think we are very grateful for this presentation, and I love the slides. Thank you. And now, without any further ado, I want to move on to the next presenter. who is Dr. Clarina Priborkin, who is going to present her topic of Readers Theater in Service of Academic Reading and Writing. And her affiliation is Givat Washington Academic College of Education in Beit Rabban in Israel. So Clarina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I'd like to talk about Readers Theater in service of academic reading and writing. I think this method can really upgrade your experience teaching academic reading and writing. That's at least what I felt. What is Readers Theater? Readers Theater is a reading activity that employs theatrical techniques to improve students' reading fluency and comprehension, self-efficacy, and motivation. So instead of memorizing lines, students simply read from scripts using expressive intonation, facial expressions, body language, etc. In my case, they also wrote their scripts. They didn't only read from scripts, but they read the scripts that they created themselves. So while this method has been traditionally used in remedial teaching, I adapted it to higher education. In my case, teachers, we're talking about future teachers. And in this presentation, I'll show you how the techniques of Readers Theater can be adapted and how the procedure went. So we'll be talking not only about reading comprehension, but also writing skills and a little bit about critical thinking and emotional intelligence if we have time. Okay, so my participants were 12 English majors at Givat Washington Academic College of Education. 6 were older retraining students. And I taught a reading comprehension course. It's a proficiency course. The goal of the course is to familiarize the students with various text types, expand their vocabulary, improve reading fluency and accuracy, etc. So this specific group of students really benefited from the idea that they could, first of all, read the academic article in such a way that they could use it later in the field. They could see how they'll apply it to the instruction. And why? Because they could simulate the problems that were raised in the academic articles and create scripts on the basis of those articles. So my additional goal was to model Readers Theater to these students and hope that they'll use this strategy later on in their own teaching. Now the teaching took place online this semester because of the pandemic, and the first thing I did, I gave them the article, What If Everything You Knew About Describing Kids, Disciplining Kids Was Wrong. This is actually a magazine, an online magazine article. It's not an academic article. I gave it as a kind of preparation towards reading the academic article itself, because it's bridged between journalistic and academic articles, writing. So, and it also exposes the students to different genre. Now, this is the procedure. So we started with reading the article independently, and then we spoke about the article. We discussed it through Zoom. And then in breakout rooms, they started writing the scripts. So I will show you the beginning of the script. I gave them a kind of a prompt that helped them start thinking about the article in dramatic terms, let's put it this way. The script would encourage the students to look for effective solutions to the kids' behavior problems. So in this case, I asked them to imagine that they're going to write a script about a parents-teacher meeting at school where they will be asked to find solutions for Danny's behavior problems. Now, of course, the article itself speaks about those solutions. So they were supposed to read about the method, read about the solution, and present it in the form of a script. So getting back to the procedure, they worked in breakout rooms, and then in a shared document, and then they sent me the document for evaluation, not for evaluation, for feedback mostly. And then I asked them to edit the script accordingly. Sometimes they didn't need to edit too much, but yes, we worked on the writing. And then I asked them to upload the script to Moodle and get a peer response. So it was both group work and kind of back and forth process between me and the students and their peers as well. And finally, they performed the script to the class in a Zoom session. Now here we didn't really have enough time to work on their pronunciation as much as I wanted to, because the emphasis was actually the writing process, the reading and the writing. In terms of, I think that in order to work on performance and actual characterization, and you need a different framework. But nevertheless, we did work on pronunciation, and I corrected them if it was necessary. So here's an example of the student script. You can see here that they mention how the problem itself, that unfortunately these kids are punished many times by the teachers and they don't know what to do. And then the parents actually introduced a different kind of approach to their child. They say, yes, we've read this book called Explosive Child, and this is the solution that we suggest, okay? So instead of just summarizing the article, they created a situation in which they can imagine themselves as future teachers and bring this into life, bring this academic knowledge that they received from the articles into life. So then I distributed a kind of questionnaire to see the reactions and how they responded. I can talk about it in detail. It's just a summary because I know that I only have 10 minutes. So the main findings, in my opinion, were that this method really helped them understand the article in depth. And this is the first one. The script writing exercise contributed to your understanding of the academic article. And most of them, you see, really, there were no negative reactions. Most of them felt that it was effective. And the most interesting finding, in my opinion, is that this exercise was helpful for them as future English teachers, because they felt, and they'll show you in their reactions that—
Serena, 2 minutes.
Yes, right. So they say, I really enjoyed the subject because it's a great teaching method. It could be useful for all ages and all levels, and it's mostly a fun way to learn. Now, this is very important because in academic reading, they often complain that the articles are dry and boring, and they don't see how they apply to their to the field. What does it have to do with me going into the classroom, standing in front of the 40 kids and dealing with discipline problems? So now they can't complain about that. This is what you need to do in order to succeed as an English teacher. Also, many students felt that it can contribute to the language skills to them personally as English learners. And even they got interested in using drama in the classroom in general, and they started to ask who else is using the drama in the classroom. And one of the students said that she found that a teacher in Beersheba in the south puts on a play with her students, and that she wants to do it as well. So they realized the power of drama, which was very important for me. And so I felt that this method really addressed all kinds of problems I had with teaching academic reading and writing. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll be happy to address any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Clarina. If anyone has any question or anything that they wish to address at the time, we have 3 minutes for this.
I can also talk about the second stage, if you want, about the second text that I gave them, which was an academic article. But if you have any questions, I'd rather address that, and I can send you the PowerPoint later with additional exercises and that I used in my class. This is, for example, an exercise on categorization and critical thinking, because that's like an exercise that deals with specifically with reading strategies. So it went deeper into identifying which sentence does what, whether it's paraphrasing, describing, or evaluating, you see? So that was one of the exercises. And actually the academic article itself was much more challenging for them, because the second text I gave them was a process of developing fourth graders reading fluency. It was a proper academic article. It was heavier. It was much more challenging for them. So we had to go over the main sections there. The sections like the abstract, the statement of the problem, participants, but you also need to choose the text that you're using with Reader's Theater very carefully, because in this case I used an article that really lends itself to Reader's Theater, to writing a script. It was a text on case studies. So it has a lot of interviews there that you can really change into scripts. It's very helpful. So for example, if you look at this excerpt, this is a quote from the article, and then you can transform it into a script. And then it's also a great exercise in changing reported speech into direct speech. It's also meaningful for them as English teachers. So you can use it in various ways. I'll leave the script here for a second if you have a few seconds to look at it.
Thank you so much. We're truly appreciative of this, and it sounds very interesting and innovative, I must say. And now it's me, so I'll share my screen because I'm your next presenter. Here we go. Let me just project. Okay, so I'll time myself as well. Hi, I'm Tal Levy. I'm the head of the ESAP department at Rupin Academic College, which is a medium-sized college in the center of Israel. And I'm in charge of the department, but I have been teaching the pre-academic track for many, many years. We have about 500 students in the pre-academic track. And I teach the weakest, which is a great challenge, but a great reward at the same time. So when they come in, they're basically illiterate to some extent. They can't put either a sentence together or definitely not a paragraph. So what will I talk about today? Today I'll talk about background, about our program and the fundamental issues that we want to cover. I'll give an, oh, why is it going like this? For some reason it's going automatically, not that I gave it this. So sorry, I'll just stick with that without the full view. Then I'll talk about the guidelines of the project and the writing aspect of the project, and then I'll show some student samples of their writing to show what a long way they've come throughout. So there are three important elements in our program. The first one is EAP. We need to allow these baby adults or young adults to become much more proficient in English, and that's the context. We base ourselves heavily on project-based language learning, PBLL, which I'll talk about, and we are interested in them acquiring digital literacy, which is, in our opinion, as important as teaching a foreign language to these young adults prior to their enrollment into higher education. We're basing most of our work in the department on the TPAC model, which is pretty known today by Kohler and Mishra, as you can see on the right bottom hand side, which is a synergy between content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge. And when they all work together, we really have a winning horse, if I may say so. So I believe many of you are acquainted with the project-based learning in general, because this is very common in engineering and other subjects. And there are many, many features which are similar in project-based learning and project-based language learning. Basically, we're talking about students working in not in a very traditional way, sitting in groups, cracking some kind of solving a problem or coming up with different innovative solutions to a given set of problems and assumptions. This quote here really talks about the project-based language. I'm missing the L at the bottom, at the top. Project-based language learning, which is a student-centered teaching approach which incorporates the use of extensive projects in the classroom. A project possesses a challenge to engage students in a process of discovery of knowledge and skills that culminates in a tangible product of their discovery process. And that's really what project-based language learning is all about. Language is not only at the heart of the whole project work, it's also the byproduct of this whole work. And when students walk out of such an experience, they truly can testify that they have improved in their language per se, besides the other added benefits that I have mentioned. This slide is my favorite, I think, in this presentation, because it talks about all the merits and all the great things that come out from project-based learning. I added the extra L to the original, so I give the credit to whoever made it at the bottom. But these are some of the endless benefits of working with project-based language learning, because students become hackers and rebels, and they become explorers, and they become wildly and unabashedly different than the schematic students we're used to have. And they're more engaged in the learning, and they learn to take creative risks. And I could read every single element on this slide because it is so exciting to see them work. There is a flow. They usually tell me, is time up? I cannot believe 4 hours went by. Now I have to mention that these week students have 36 weeks of instruction, 12 hours a week, which is a lot because that's what they're missing in order to come up to the level. The first semester is mostly dedicated to remedial teaching, and the whole second semester is around the project, which I'm coming to, and that's the 100 people project. It's a project by Intel and Google, initiated more than 10 years ago, which assumes that if the world was a village of 100 people, how many would have access to water, to food, to education, to computers, etc., etc. And we use all their materials. We have harnessed their materials. We have embraced their materials and platformed it into our needs for a PBLL, project-based language learning use. So in front of you, in the center of the slide, you can see the 10 global issues that are covered, from water to food to transportation, health, economy, education, energy, shelter, war, and waste. Students deal with all 4 skills. The heart of the matter is vocabulary acquisition, but students are exposed and engaged in listening and speaking activities, like viewing videos and creating videos of themselves talking, whether in pairs or in groups or individually. They read a lot of articles around each subject. They write a lot. I'll talk about the writing in a second. And the end result, when they finish this whole process, they come up with a group video project that is put online for the whole world to watch. And the writing is just the stage before the video, where they encapsulate everything they want to do in their video and say why they chose the project. You'll see my scaffolding in a second. So this is my favorite quote about the process that these students go through, because they come in hardly sometimes knowing how to spell their name correctly. So a word and a word after a word is power. And that's exactly what happens to these students in my class. 3 cycles of writing, and now I'll zoom in more to the writing, are taking place. There are 3 modes of mastering writing: individual work, pair work, and group work. And all 3 are done the whole time, the whole year, and throughout the project work. If I had to choose one slide to explain this whole process, it would probably be this slide. From a wandering paragraph, when they reach the paragraph level, prior to commencing the work on their project, to a wonderful paragraph. It's a 4-element thing in order for my students to write a good paragraph. It's unity, it's order, it's coherence, and it's completeness. These are the 4 elements that comprise a good paragraph. Now here you can see just a visual slide with the stages through which every writing process goes. And I know that all the teachers in the crowd say, wow, a lot of work, 2 revisions for every paper. Yes, indeed. I have a lot of sleepless nights and very, very early mornings, because revising and correcting and advising students on how to write better is a very tedious process. Here you can see the template that they receive before they sit down to write their first draft of their project work, just to give them some kind of scaffolding and to help them consolidate their thinking as a group before they sit down and they choose what to write and how to write. And this is after they have chosen their actual issue and their possible solution. The next slide describes the rubrics upon which they're graded. And we can see that they are graded on content and organization, vocabulary, language use, and mechanics. And this whole part, the process of the writing and the product of the writing, is worth 40% of their overall project work. The other 60% is for the video, because that's the real product of their hard work. In the less than a minute that I have, although I have a sample of a video, but I knew that most chances are I won't get to it, I want to show you some samples of midway and how it's done. So all groups work on Google Docs, and they share it with me as well. Each group shares their work with me. All my corrections are color-coded, so they know exactly whether it's spelling, whether it's wrong word, whether they have to restate, whether it's a syntactic problem, etc. I make a lot of comments on the side, as you can see, and at the bottom, usually in a different color, I just suggest different directions, both in their thinking and content and the way they write. And then I'm part of the living document until it is done. I'll show you 2 more, just visualize how it looks. I have about 9 groups per class. These are my resources. And just a second, sorry. Doesn't stop. So these are my resources, and this is my contact detail in case you want to ask anything. I have to give credit to the slides, to SlideGo, from which I took the presentation template. So if any of you are interested in great templates for slides, go to SlideGo. Thank you very much, and I'm open to answer any and every question you might have. How do you handle students who prefer to not work in groups? Okay, that's an excellent question, by the way. I do have, every year, I have conducted this project now for 11 years. Every year I do have a student or 2 who prefer to work alone. I have no problem with that. I just tell them in advance, it's much more work because they have to do everything. They can't share the work with anyone. But there are those who would rather not work in a team, and I don't force it on people who are 25, more or less. And I don't think that's the way to do it, because we're trying to imitate a real world situation. And that's fine. I do have those who can't find a group, by the way, which is a social kind of aspect to it. And then I gently talk a group that I think is suitable into it. I do not like groups more than 3 because I've found out throughout the years that always the fourth is a parasite, no matter who the person is. And therefore a threesome is the ideal. Can you show again the writing template? Sure, no problem, with pleasure. It's less than a template, it's more of a scaffolding. So what was the issue that they chose? Who are the students who are in the group? And by the way, the whole thing is going through a forum where they have to state what they want to do, and it's on a first comes, first served basis. And then you have to state the problem and what it affects and who is affected by the problem, a possible cause of this problem, and the reason why it is important to solve it. Because and then possible solutions, and then the solution that they choose to stick with and focus on and develop their whole video around. And their videos are creative and amazing. And I've learned so much from my students throughout the years when they create their videos. It's really beyond words. I don't have the time to share with you. I gave some presentations on the videos that they make, but it's really incredible and inspiring, I must say. And these are students who couldn't spell their name in October. I would like to remind you this. Someone says they don't hear. I'm sorry. I think it's an internet connection thing. So if there aren't any more questions and no comments, I would like to thank you all for coming. I would like to thank Yaniv for supporting us IT-wise. And I want to wish you a wonderful continuation of the conference today. And I'll see you around. I'm chairing another session, so you're welcome to pop in. And enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much for coming. I truly appreciate it. Have a great conference. Bye-bye. Hi, Lana.